Hi guys, I'm just going to show you some basic stuff. This is me getting started in creating a concept based on one of the very early preliminary ideas that I had. So this was the basic idea that I had. This was taken from like a wave design, something to do with a river. Oh no, an eel, I think. So changing walls, these are just things that I noticed people trying to do and sort of doing it harder than what you really, putting in a lot more effort than what it really requires. So if you're editing a wall, just remember that you should have grouped these things so to make any edits for starters. You have to double click on it to get into it to make changes to that shape. A lot of the time, I see people quite frustrated that that doesn't seem to be doing anything, like it won't be making a hole in the surface or whatnot, and it's just because they haven't gone into the group first to start marking up where the changes are going to be. The next thing is with the wall, I want to change the thickness of this wall. I'm not happy with how wide it is, and because it's a curved design, I can't just like push or pull the sides in. So the best way to do that is to use the offset tool, which is F command, and to bring it in. So I'm going to bring it in about that much, and I just need to mod these, and the purple line tells me that that's directly in line with what already exists. So zoom right in if it's not snapping or showing you that. There we go. And then I can erase this portion here, and then likewise at the end. So while this seems kind of fiddly, it is in the long run, it's the best way and most efficient way to do it, and then erase that bit here. Now I've actually essentially sort of got a markup for what could be 3 divisions of a wall, and I'm going to decide which ones to push away. So when you're modding a space, there should never be a time where you're actually deleting one of the black lines or edges. If I delete that, the whole thing blows apart. If I delete this, that blows apart. That is not how you edit or mod the space. You need to think of this as a solid shape that you're either subtracting mass away from or you're adding mass to. That is the basic fundamental of SketchUp and how it works when you're editing and playing around with things. So you're adding lines, like I've just done, so that I've now split it into 3. And I'm gonna, for this, I'm gonna decide to actually push away this portion and this portion here, leaving me only now with this wall. And then once they're down as low as the floor, I can then delete those. Now I can do that because this wall is actually a part of the floor group. I know that because when I'm clicking around it like this, I can see it's all joined. That shouldn't be like that. It's just because then it's really, really hard to kind of like modify that floor space later on or pull it away from the wall or separate it from the wall. So ideal if they're actually separate. And later on, after floor planning, we will actually kind of rebuild this portion, perhaps if you needed to, so that we can separate the two. So I should have done that from the beginning. Anyway, so now you can see I've got a much thinner wall, different to the really thick and heavy wall. The other changes I'm going to make right now, because this is just still in sort of concept phase, is that I'm looking at this, I'm looking at the proportions and size of this, and I'm imagining sort of a person in here. Ignore the SketchUp lady. So I've left her there to show you that I'm modeling this a lot smaller than life size because our computers, I find everyone's computers are so different, it will start to slow down, particularly if you've got a lot of curvy geometry or curves, circles, cylinders. Anything with rounds creates a lot of hard work for your computer. So I am modeling it smaller, but I'm imagining that a person might come in at about this height here. So I am always sort of thinking about scale, and I'm using the hand tool to drag it down and the orbit tool to just imagine walking into this space and thinking about the other changes I might make at this point in time. So if you haven't done some of the SketchUp gym activities, a lot of the processes I use are in here, broken down into discrete small tutorials. So for example, I've got this massive curved wall, and I might want to create a copy of a piece of timber in a particular path, and doing that really, really quickly. Here's the tutorial on how to do that really, really quickly. So it's just a case-by-case basis. All of your designs are going to be quite different, but right away I'm just going to use my line tool. I'm going to square this already existing line off, And I might do it here as well. And I might actually just push this away. And so maybe one of my ideas is that I do that. I've got one post and I'll just make a whole lot of lines all the way around. And perhaps this is sort of one of my ideas, is that every second part will be an empty space. Now, this is actually not the fastest way to do this. I'm doing this the very hard way and the rather inaccurate way. You see how that there's no line there? It's because it's on a bit of a weird surface at the moment. How this should be done is the fast way, like this, where you're learning to make smart copies and you're learning to space them. And if you like, you're learning to kind of curve them around and put them along a path. That's using smart copies, and that's using arraying around a curve, and that's using smart components. So that's actually how I should be doing it. The reason I'm doing it like this is because I'm just modding this little idea to show a really quick, very basic concept. So that's that. The next thing that people might want to know is how do you put a hole into a curved surface? So the answer to that is this. You have to make two intersecting faces. So I'm going to make, say, circular windows. So I need to first of all make a circle. I'm going to group it. And I'm going to rotate it around. Now, rotation on a rounded edge like this, it's actually got no edge to detect it, and I want to pick a very particular axis. I'm going to use my arrow keys to force it in either one of the three axes. That one and that one is what I'm going to do. Go up and go back. I pay attention to the color axes, so there it snaps green. That tells me it's 90 degrees. Also, the number in the bottom right of my screen tells me it's 90 degrees. So arrow keys are really helpful to force an axis. I don't know that was actually right. Okay, so that didn't quite do it properly. Let's try it again. There we go. Red axis, click, go straight up on the blue axis, go straight back. Okay, there you go. There's 90 degrees. Weird. Should have done it. So then you just want to push it back. Again, if the axes aren't behaving, just use your arrow keys to force them in a direction and up. There we go. And just check that it's half in and half out the other side. Now, I could probably do quite a few of those at the same time if my idea is to have more than one. I'm not going to do that right now. You guys can figure that out. And so that angle, I don't know, that angle to that wall still looks not quite right. I might just put the compass down on the ground and just very carefully push it around. That's about where I want it to be. That looks good. So what you need to do now is I grouped it just so I could move it with ease. And in case I dropped it on this wall, if it wasn't grouped, it would be impossible for me to separate. So now I will explode it, now that it's where I want it to be, and I will explode this sort of temporarily. Right, so everything is just out in the open, and what I want to do is I just want to drag my mouse over these surfaces. The surfaces I really need to pick up are that cylinder and that wall, all sides of that wall where it's going in. So this side, that side, the lines, the top line, bottom line, everything. Anything else around it doesn't really matter. Then I right click my trackpad and press, let's go back to my selection tool, do it there, and press intersect faces with model. And nothing sort of seems to have happened, but then when you start to erase that cylinder, and it's okay to use the erase tool in here, as long as I'm going over black lines, and whenever I go over a black line, it erases anything related to that. So on this curved wall, there's nothing I'm rolling over that is going to be affected. So it does that, and then I roll around here, and likewise delete that, and I'm left with this zone here. Now, if I wanted to put windows in the circle, that gets a bit more complex. I'd copy and paste that shape just outside temporarily. In fact, I'd probably grab that one, rotate around, hold shift, and also grab that one, and then copy and paste both of them at the same time out. Later on, there's a possibility I could use that to make the window. I could just actually take one of them a little bit closer to the other, keeping it on the green axis, so I could use my arrow keys there, and then I should be able to just add a line in there and possibly start to kind of like stitch them back up, and then that thing grouped, I could add transparent material to and slip it back inside of this hole here. As soon as I remove that and orbit around, remove that, I have a space, a window space. Now I'm just going to check inside of it because I think that may have, oh no, that is definitely a solid inside surface. That's what it should have left you with. If it hasn't, you might have done something wrong. You could try and stitch it back up, but it should have left you with a nice smooth face. And then I'd finish off stitching this together, group it up, and just because I've pulled it straight out on the axes, I should be able to, maybe I haven't, but I should be able to kind of move it point to point and then push it back in along the axes for a really nice, perfect fit. There we go. So that would be the window. Or a hole. However, whatever you want. You don't have to have that, but it always just pays to play around. So that's me kind of working towards my first kind of concept. I'm just then going to put materials on it, show materials for the ground, show materials. These could be wood, this could be rusted panel around a framework, that could be concrete, whatever you like. So you're just kind of showing a basic idea and then putting a person in here and then making all the different views that you are required to do. So for concepts, it makes no difference really, I don't think, what year level you are. You should be all trying to show as many different views of that concept as possible, both interior and exterior, because at this point you want to start showing functionality and purpose, and scale has a lot to do with that. Materiality has something to do with that, and things like windows and columns and beams start playing a role in that as well, but in a very basic way. There's no other further detail than that. So play around, try to implement some of those processes I've just explained, and then refer back to the SketchUp gym if you want more detailed understanding of like some of these things here, particularly between slides 12 and 12 and slide 4 probably for many are really, really helpful.